Hello everyone. This is a video I've been wanting to make every day for like 6 weeks. We shipped a brand new open source project called Netclaw. Netclaw is a always-on autonomous personal assistant built using large language models and Akka.net under the covers. And we recently kind of covered in our Akka.net community stand-up a couple of weeks ago, talked a bit about how we built Netclaw using Akka.net. What Netclaw is designed to be is sort of an agent that always runs in the background and is connected through your chat applications like Slack, Discord, Mattermost, and eventually things like Microsoft Teams will support too. And it's designed to go ahead and give you a simple experience that is reliable and secure, that can work with local AI models to help you automate all sorts of tedium and just cruft that kind of populates the daily lives of people at work and at home. So let's go ahead and dive into some examples. So the primary way we want you to work with Netclaw is through a chat application. Now we ship a TUI with the chat window you can use to interact with it right here on the command line if you want, but that's not really the way you're supposed to work with it. You're supposed to hook it up to a Discord or Slack or Mattermost, and eventually we'll support things like WhatsApp and Microsoft Teams and other chat channels that users are interested in supporting. So this is the Petabridge Slack channel. And what you can see here on the left, these are all Netclaw instances that are communicating with me about lots of little things going on in our business today. I've got my main engineering agent right here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to check on the pull request. And you should see a little status indicator showing up. So it's starting to do some work. We're trying to do a release of a version of our Pipedrive CLI that our Netclaw customer agent uses in order to work our sales automations. That's what this agent does. Then we have a Netclaw support agent who's designed to basically keep track of our support tickets and make sure that we're staying within SLA. And this agent actually uses a slightly more powerful model than all the others. It is able to basically do things like really detailed log analysis and customer reproductions. Okay, cool. Looks like it's going to go ahead and sync our local branch and then push a tag to go ahead and trigger the next part of the release. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I'll go ahead and mention here, please set a reminder to monitor the release. And once it's done, send a PR to the Netclaw images repository upgrading the version of the, Pipedrive CLI we are using. All right, so it's going to set a reminder, which basically is going to have this agent go ahead and wake up periodically every few minutes to see how things are going on GitHub Actions. And once that's all done, it'll go ahead and work on this other repository that depends on the CLI, and it'll begin drafting a pull request back to that. We'll maybe go and check in on this in a couple of minutes and see how it's going. So literally while the agent's running, I'm going to demonstrate the most important operating principle of Netclaw. Netclaw is not meant to be a thing you sit and watch. That would be a very poor use of your time. Netclaw is meant to handle things for you behind the scenes. So for instance, I'm having it go ahead and do this release, and I'm going to have it send over a pull request to another repository that's going to build a Docker image that our Netclaw agents that are deployed into our Test Labs Kubernetes cluster use for doing sales work. That's a bunch of tedious stuff that does not need my direct attention all that much. I just need to give the agent a little guidance to tell it what I want, and I can let it cook and do things in the background. And if it does something that's potentially dangerous, like it needs me to merge a pull request or allow it to open one, it'll prompt me and ask once that comes up. So chat first is kind of the way it's meant to work. Netclaw is also meant to be very simple. Platforms like Hermes Agent or OpenClaw do all this crazy wackadoodle stuff with self-modification or orchestrators or supervisors or automatic skill formation. I think that's a bunch of jibber jabber that basically generally does not work all that well. And what we've opted for instead is sort of the reverse of that. Simple constructs that are reliable and have a small number of moving parts. Our goal here is to have fairly predictable behavior that is going to work the same way each time you run the same model to the extent that it's possible with non-deterministic LLMs. And then finally, there's security. You will see some security approval stuff pop up when we flip back over to Slack again in a few minutes. But generally speaking, we have a few different security concepts that are at work within Netclaw. We have the ability to do things like malicious prompt detection, the ability to essentially restrict what the agent has access to depending on its security posture. So if it's your personal agent, it basically has a super broad security posture, can do anything. If it's facing a team of people, it's more limited. If it's facing the public, it's even more limited than that. And then finally, we have the approval system. This is especially useful if you have something that might be irreversible inside your application. So for instance, if we have an MCP server that allows us to access customer files in Dropbox, you might not want that agent to be able to move files around or share them without your permission. This is something you can control through Netclaw's security tools. Ditto with things like shell calls. We don't need a lot of sandboxing with a tool like Netclaw because these security primitives are built into it by default. That generally speaking, any shell command that we haven't previously saved an approval record for in the directory where it's trying to execute, we're going to ask you to go and approve it. And we try to strike a good balance of being secure and not triggering approval fatigue. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that so far. Next, the other really big thing that kind of drove me to do Netclaw was I really wanted to make sure I could get it to work with small models. So this means models that you can run on your own hardware. So in our case, we use a lot of Gemma 4 or Qwen 3.6 models inside our test lab. There's a couple of other new ones that have come out recently, like Ornth, that are pretty exciting. You can run those with Netclaw. We've got a bunch of users in the Netclaw Discord who are experimenting with this stuff all the time. But this helps us keep our data private, which is important because our agents are often working on things like customer support issues or support contracts or emails. We prefer to keep all that sort of inside our house. The other thing you can also do, though, is we do support connecting to the big boys. If you want to use ChatGPT, Copilot, or Anthropic, we support all those subscriptions, and we're adding support for more inference providers all the time. The general idea, though, is that we try to make sure whatever our footprint is, if it can work for a small model, it can work for a big model. All right, so here we go. We're back in Slack. Got a bunch more instances all up and running. But one of the things the agent did was it said it pushed the tag. It hadn't done that yet when I got this notification. I double checked. It was able to go and look up the remote status on the remote, determine that it hadn't pushed the tag. And now here I am being asked to approve this command here. Every single chat platform we work with basically supports these types of like nice block renderings, whether it's Discord, Slack, or Mattermost. We have screenshots of all that up on the website. But what I can do here is say, you know what? I want to approve the ability to add this tag here. And I'm going to go ahead and do that only for this chat. Alternatively, I could deny this command and the agent won't have the ability to run it. So I'm going to go ahead and say this chat. Now, if I say always here, that means that any commands that execute in this directory where all the verbs are basically found on this list, it'll be able to run without me needing to approve it. If I hit always anywhere, this will apply to any directory the agent has access to. So this is one of the ways we kind of give you the ability to manage what an agent can and can't do without your supervision. So let me go ahead and click this chat. And that'll go ahead and kick the next leg off of all the work behind the scenes. I got the agent cooking on a couple of other issues down here. Let's go ahead and dive back in to talking a bit more about Netclaw's use cases while this works behind the scenes. Now, Netclaw learns from experience. This is the memory system. So long story short, we basically have an agent that observes every session. It will try to distill memories based off of what you and the agent did. It has some safeguards in place to try to make sure it doesn't accidentally remember something sensitive like an API key or anything like that. And then it also kind of tries to separate what is a temporary memory versus what's a durable fact versus what's a document. Like a document would be like a list of open pull requests that Dependabot sent that we need to triage. Whereas a durable fact would be something like, what is my preferred airline? In fact, there would be a pretty good example here for me to show you a little bit about how reliable Netclaw's memory system actually is. Let's go ahead and try that. So this is the same virtual machine that I run that already bought instance of Netclaw on. And I'm going to fire up the Netclaw CLI here. You can go ahead and see we've got a bunch of different little commands. I'm going to go ahead and check on the status of our Netclaw instance. So let me pull this up real quick. We are running this NVIDIA distillation of Qwen 3.627b. This is the dense model. It's very, very smart, but it's a little slow, but I like it. The quality of its output is really high. And then this will kind of show me how interactive we've been over Slack. If I pull up Netclaw stats down here, I could see how many tokens have been in and out this session. So let's see, about 3.5 million tokens in and about 8,000 tokens out so far this session, which just began about 50 minutes ago. I guess I must have restarted the Netclaw daemon. Now, if I go ahead and do Netclaw chat, I'm going to go ahead and ask Netclaw, this is just to demonstrate memory, what is my preferred airline? Netclaw has memories related to this because it's helped me book travel before. So it's going to go and dig into my history there. Yep, and it knows my departure hub, and I like Star Alliance. Okay, help me book a trip to Washington, D.C. for Labor Day. And I'll capitalize that, Labor Day. Now, Netclaw chat is useful if you want to be able to chat with the agent and you don't have a chat tool hooked up to it yet. This is sort of an out-of-the-box, fairly cheap way of kicking the tires and validating that Netclaw works. I guess it'll do everything that a real live Slack session can do. It can go ahead and do for me. Let's see. Yeah, SEP 5 through SEP 8. All right, so I can see here that it is doing a web search for me. That's something else that Netclaw supports under the covers, does web search and web fetch. You can also even have it hook up to Playwright and do things like navigate browsers for you. Netclaw is pretty fully featured in terms of what it does. Looks like it's using Google Flights. Great. Well, you kind of get the point. It's able to go and learn all this information about you and use it again in future queries, which is great. Now, if I went ahead and just asked Netclaw to go ahead and help me book this flight without doing this step first, this would have still worked. It would have been able to go and retrieve these memories related to my preferred airline and location and use that information for me. Now, this kind of dives in. I've already shown you some examples here of just working with my Netclaw instances. What Netclaw is designed to do is run a lot of the garbage that goes into daily life, whether you're a software engineer, a marketer, a salesperson in customer support, or a startup CEO like me. There's lots of little tedious tasks that take a long time to do that usually require a fair amount of attention. And all of these little death by 1,000 paper cuts, attention demanding tasks can add up and really chew into a lot of your day. Netclaw is designed to attack that. Now, if you have tools like Claude Code or Copilot or whatever, you are probably going to want to keep using that for doing, let's say, really big engineering tasks. But for writing little bug fixes or writing up GitHub issues or dealing with Dependabot pull requests, Netclaw can handle all that. That's what it's doing for me right now. A really good example of, let's say, something that Netclaw's features will let us do is if I go and publish, I haven't quite set this release up yet, but this is something that I'm working on doing. Netclaw will let you basically publish a GitHub release on GitHub. So this is just normal GitHub stuff. And we can receive a webhook if you expose Netclaw publicly. This is the exposure modes functionality of Netclaw. If you expose Netclaw publicly, you can go ahead and receive a webhook. And basically, as long as this GitHub webhook basically includes the correct secret on it, we'll go ahead and receive that down here. We can go ahead and pull all the release notes when this happens. We can use a tool to go ahead and generate different graphics for this. I can even have different sub-agents go and adversarially criticize the graphics and force us to generate new ones. I'll then get maybe a couple of graphic images attached to my Slack channel, and I can choose which one I want. And after I approve it, the agent can go and schedule this post for me, which will then get pushed out to Petabridge's social channels. This saves me like 2 hours of work every single release. This is the sort of stuff Netclaw is designed to do. A lot of this functionality here, GitHub release, webhook, pull release notes, you can go ahead and script all that if you want to. But choosing which graphics to generate and which points to emphasize and being able to adversarially criticize those and do several rounds of improvement and show you all the intermediate output in a Slack conversation while you're off doing something else, that is really powerful. And this is what Netclaw is designed to help do. You can apply hundreds of different examples to it in both your personal and professional lives. So here we are again, back to Slack. It's been doing more stuff behind the scenes here. And look at this. It is now trying to create a pull request to upgrade this Netclaw images project. I suspect here the release notes update I asked about is for this project. I'll go ahead and say, yes, sure. I'll approve it only for this chat. And it'll go ahead and send that pull request over. And I'll ask, let's see, monitor this PR and set to auto merge. and then push the tag for this image. All right, so it's going to go ahead and run a whole nother release process on a totally different repository now and run that all behind the scenes while I'm here talking to you, wrapping up this video. So what all does Netclaw support? Well, integrating with chat channels and the CLI are kind of big features, but here's the other ones that are kind of behind the scenes that are really important. Reminders are probably my most powerful ones that I use. Every day or so, or maybe every few hours, I have agents that go run a skill on a schedule. So doing things like my support agent has a skill it uses to figure out which support tickets do we need to respond to right now. That'll go ahead and just kick off automatically behind the scenes using a reminder. And then we have webhooks, which, as the name implies, these are live events that are pushed into your agent via an HTTP endpoint. I have one agent that hasn't had a lot to do today that basically responds to webhooks that are sent to us from our open telemetry system. We use Seek by Datalust. Seek will go ahead and process some alerts and send those back to one of our agents who will immediately begin pulling all of basically the events that came from that trace, trying to formulate a GitHub issue, and will open a new bug report on the Netclaw repository whenever one of our agents fails. That's one of the things that it is looking out for. Then we've seen the approval system down here. We also have some rich support for sub agents, which I have some that are actually running right now on some of our workflows. You can go ahead and even customize sub agent definitions with a system prompt if you want to. And on top of that, we're MCP first. We use a lot of different MCP servers here at Petabridge. We use TextForge, Notion, Dropbox, Memorizer, which we've made a video about before. All that stuff is all built into most of our agents. And it's what kind of helps us run and automate so many different parts of our business using Netclaw. So we'll do some much longer videos on how to configure Netclaw and how to write skills. We also have the Netclaw skills server, which is a whole different thing we haven't even talked about yet. There's a lot to it. What I would recommend you go ahead and do if you're interested, first go to netclaw.dev. This is our website, and you can go ahead and try installing Netclaw yourself on Linux, OS X, Windows, or you can even run it as a Docker container if you want to. All of this is available. And then finally, you should go ahead and check out the Netclaw GitHub right here. Take a look at our issue tracker and any of the other different, let's say, open bug reports or anything here if you want to contribute or get involved with that. Or if there's an issue you've run into, you can open that there. And then finally, go ahead and check out the Netclaw Discord, which we link to very prominently on the Netclaw website. So thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it. We're going to make a lot more videos about Netclaw. Please leave a comment on anything you'd like to see us address in a future video about it. Thank you very much. Well, that'll do it for this video. If you found this video useful, please don't forget to check the description to find links to other resources we may have included, so blog posts, GitHub code samples, other videos, so on. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. We'll catch you next time. Thank you very much.